Here's a failure that's direct from this Trump administration. It's like a consistent failure that keeps happening.
Breaking news, a grand jury has declined to indict New York Attorney General Letitia James. Let's get straight to CNN's Caitlin Polans. Caitlin, what are you learning?
Well, Caitlin Collins and I have just confirmed through some sources that indeed a grand jury sitting in the federal courthouse in Norfolk, Virginia today, they looked at the possibility of indicting Letitia James for mortgage fraud, and they said no to this Justice Department. Now, this comes just about 10 days or a week or so after a judge previously dismissed the case. That case was dismissed against James. It was the same mortgage fraud case, we believe, that the prosecutors were trying to get off the ground again today. It had been dismissed because previously a judge looked at it and said that the prosecutor who had taken it through the grand jury the first time wasn't validly doing that job, and so that they needed to try again with a grand jury to reconfirm an indictment if they wanted it. We do, though, believe that the Justice Department could try again before a grand jury, potentially a third time, to try and secure a James indictment. But we do not know exactly when that might happen. We were told that this could be not a time for premature celebration.
They talk about the stopping on the premature celebrations all the time, but these small celebrations keep happening because this Trump Justice Department continues to go after the same folks for the same things and keep getting rejected in court. I remember I said before, these guys go to court and they lose. Then they lose again. Then they complain about the justice system. Then they lose again. Letitia James's attorney was talking about how rare it is for this to happen.
Were you surprised that they couldn't get her indicted today?
I have to be surprised. I've practiced law for a long time. And in my experience as both a prosecutor when I was that in the Justice Department and as a defense attorney, I can't tell you a time in the federal system, not the state system, where a federal prosecutor thought a case was strong enough to bring to a grand jury, and the grand jury has said no.
So you haven't seen anything like this before?
I have not.
When federal prosecutors bring charges, they're so sure of it. From a grand jury perspective, they know they're going to get that indictment. This is unprecedented. This doesn't happen. Maybe because the guy that they're following behind is unprecedentedly stupid. Here's a statement from Letitia James specifically on this. As I've said from the start, the charges against me are baseless. It's time for this unchecked weaponization of our justice system to stop. I'm grateful to the members of the grand jury and humbled by the support I've received from across the country. Now, I will continue to do my job standing up for the rule of law and the people of New York. She has to keep talking about how baseless these charges are, and then a grand jury agrees. And then when one grand jury gets kind of handpicked to make that then happen, after they start presenting things, there's another reason why this whole thing sucks. They've really cracked the code on how to suck many times over and over again in court. As this whole thing continues to play out and people are seeing how bad this really looks and how they keep getting rejected, one thing that this former Department of Defense Special Counsel Ryan Goodman said was, the more they lose, the worse the case even gets if and when they finally get this all handled on maybe the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh, eighth try.
It's just an extraordinary moment in the sense that a grand jury not returning an indictment is on its own terms highly unusual.
Right.
We already knew from the first indictment that it was quite flimsy, to be frank. So the idea here is that it's that week that a grand jury doesn't even return an indictment. Were the government to try again and get one, they go back to square one in a certain sense. Then they walk in with an indictment that can work in court. But if any other jurors in an actual case get wind of that one way or another, the whole idea around it, the public consciousness, is that this is a very weak case.
But it sounds like what you're saying is that something gets so poisoned by a grand jury saying no, that really would lower the chances of any second try.
Lowers the chances, and one of her strongest defenses is that this is a vindictive prosecution. The fact that the grand jury did not return an indictment would strengthen it incredibly if they were to get a second indictment, because the argument behind vindictive prosecution, the paradigmatic case is when the government either brings a flimsy case, so the fact that it was already rejected by a grand jury, or tries to re-indict somebody a third time. Right. That would be the hallmarks of vindictive prosecution. I'm not saying she'd win that, but it really strengthens her ability to win that argument.
Right. Well,
the more they try, the more they strengthen the case of vindictive prosecution, which they haven't even had to present yet because they can't get that far, because this whole thing is led by Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, what's her name? Lindsay Halligan, and these two new guys who nobody even really knows their name. because he's just picking folks off the street and he's like, hey, do you want to go stand in front of a court and embarrass yourself? Do you have no shame? Work for me. They can also go by the previous things that this president has said, his extreme disdain and hate for Letitia James. And again, don't forget, the reason he hates Letitia James is because she busted him. Because literally, she's the cop and he is the criminal. He's upset about that.
The fascist and racist Attorney General of New York State, Letitia James. You have an Attorney General who's a total stone cold crook, New York State. Letitia James, a total crook. A crooked AG, Letitia James. Letitia James from New York. This is another real Lola. There's no question about Letitia James, the corrupt Attorney General of New York.
Constant, overwhelming instances and examples of this guy telling me how much he hates Letitia James. And oddly, he keeps trying to go and prosecute her. Don't forget also the accidental post that he put out there that was apparently meant to be a text message to Pam Bondi to go after all of his political enemies. You have to do it now. At the same time, when he was getting prosecuted by her, constantly talking about what it is that she's doing to him. It's all set up for this vindictive prosecution defense.
Almost all experts and legal analysts have stated for all to see that the litigation before Judge Engoron is a sham and a disgrace, a dark time in the New York judicial history. It's a very fabled history, mostly good, but this is a very bad time. The Attorney General, Letitia James, is a racist scoundrel who thinks she has total power and control over the judge. And we'll see if the judge is going to do the right thing. But so far, it's been a very unfair witch hunt, and the whole country is watching.
I wonder if they think the folks that are part of these grand juries or the attorneys or these judges that look at all this, if they've just been like asleep for the past several years. If they don't understand how he talked about the weaponization of the Justice Department. That is, right before he went and weaponized the Justice Department. Caitlin Polance also said off the top, they don't know when or if they're going to come for this third time. So I found the smooth voice of Scott MacFarlane from CBS to talk about how soon this just might happen.
At some point today at the federal courthouse in Norfolk, the Department of Justice is expected to try again to get a grand jury to indict New York Attorney General Letitia James. They tried yesterday, not so much, didn't happen. Grand jury said no. As they continue this effort to prosecute this critic of President Trump, it's worth going through the timeline here. They did secure an indictment a few weeks ago. Judge threw the case out saying the prosecutor was unlawfully appointed. They gave it another go yesterday, didn't happen. They'll try again today. Grand juries have been pushing back against some of what the Department of Justice has been bringing recently. We saw it in the sandwich thrower case earlier this year, where a grand jury at first said, no, we're not going to make a federal charge out of a tossed salami sandwich. The Department of Justice tried again, brought a charge in a different way, and then the trial jury said no. I spoke to a few of those trial jurors over the last week, one of whom said there was at times laughter or mocking by the jurors during deliberations about the case that had been presented to them. That defendant was found not guilty at trial after the initial grand jury said no. So as we watch what happens in Norfolk, Virginia today, we watch and wait to see if there's another no from a grand jury, whether this becomes a contagion in other courthouses.
It could be happening right now. Maybe they're securing their indictment. Maybe they're finally going to get to that next stage where they could potentially get embarrassed again in court. They always get embarrassed in court. So here, last little piece from Abby Lowell, who's again the attorney for Letitia James, talking about how much this is strengthening their case, as was mentioned earlier. But I want to get it specifically from him because he really talks about how bad this is for them.
The law, which is very hard to prove, basically with all they've done, I think we filed a motion that probably had 7 single-space pages of statements President Trump has made to go after her. And then the unprecedented nature of bringing such a case with no basis, given that career prosecutors have said there's no case. And now if they re-indict or if they try to up it again and they keep trying it again, all they're doing is making our motion stronger and stronger.
And Bill Pulte, the official that you mentioned, he's the head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. He has made clear that he's used, the power of his job in order to seek out information like this. What do you think this spells for him if they have failed to seek a second indictment?
Well, I think there's two parts of that, Caitlin. The first is he has already been exposed in articles from his own people in the Inspector General's office and other people inside the agency who have come forward and saying he's violated rules to do what he's doing. That is, I understand, under some review itself. As to whether or not this teaches him that not everything he does turns in the way he wants, remember, A.G. James was the first person he did this to, and then came Senator Adam Schiff, and then came Federal Reserve Board Governor Lisa Cook, and then recently Congressman Eric Swalwell of California. Maybe they'll get the message that this is not the way that you're supposed to do your job.
He's not going to get that message. Come on, Abby, I'm sorry. Come on. Maybe he'll get the message. That the message is not to do the right thing. We have to stop assuming that their plan is to do the right thing and they keep making mistakes. These are not mistakes. These are plans. It's supposed to violate all norms and all legal processes and do what Donald Trump says, like a fascist leader would. That's what they are.